Hello, everybody. Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you may be today. I'm Dan Morrow with ESCO Corporation. With me today is also Mike Weeks, who is one of our design engineers. I'd like to thank all of you for coming, taking the time to join, and I'd like to thank AWRF and the sponsors for holding this virtual PI. Today, I'd like to go over some of the products in ESCO's rigging product line, and we hope to have some time for some questions at the end. We'll just get started. The ESCO rigging line, we have three types of end fittings that we use, that we offer. Sleeves, which is essentially an item that will make a loop on the end of your wire rope. Sockets, which is a pinned design, and then ferrules, which are mostly used for choker hooks. There are 4 different types of attachment methods, depending on the type of end fitting you're using. So there's swaging, which is essentially you're deforming the end fitting with a swage die, with a swager, and that deformation creates friction between the wire rope and the fitting. You also have a wedge, right, where you're actually adding a component into the wire rope, creating a wedge type feature that uses friction to keep the wire rope in the fitting. And then you have resin, which is usually a 2-part epoxy that you mix up and you pour into the basket of the fitting, and once it hardens, it adheres to the wire rope strands and creates a slug that will also counteract the force of the wire rope. And then you also have zinc, right? It is usually poured in moltenly, and once it solidifies, it will also adhere to the wire rope strands, creating a slug that will take the loading. If we look at the sleeves, so we have 4 different types of sleeves. First is a one-piece duplex sleeve. This allows, it's like a turnback, it's essentially another name for it. It's a much easier loop to make than a Flemish eye or a farmer's eye. It's a turnback, so it's a single piece. We pour these in our ESCO 40SS material, which along with that, you get a very high ductility, and which is good for the swaging. The material will flow around the wire rope and into the voids to create more of an interference fit for a better grip. The other thing you get with the 40SS material is very good in cold temperatures. It's a very ductile material. Once you swage it, it becomes very hard. So it's also good for abrasion resistance. And it usually outlasts the sleeve, the rope. The other duplex sleeve we have is a 2-piece sleeve. So this, we use 2 pieces, and what it does is it gives you a little bit more flexibility over shivs, if that's your application. Also, we have the single sleeve, which is used for Flemish eyes. Again, in our 40SS material, so you get all of those advantages if that's what you need. And then, of course, we have the carbon steel sleeves, which are very popular in the market. We use a heat-treated steel specially made for swaging so that you avoid any sort of cracking. And it's usually a low-cost alternative. It's also available in zinc coating. We offer 3 types of sockets. So swage socket, and you'll notice there's an open socket, closed socket, and a bail socket. So 3 different types of swage sockets. We also offer spelter sockets. These are certified material that you use with either resin or zinc. And we offer material certifications for those. as well as for big D sockets, which are generally used for offshore to connect to chain systems. And those are also certified material batches. We have 3 types of ferrules. So we have swage ferrules, we have wedge ferrules, and we have zinc ferrules. So if you look at the swage ferrules, we have screwy chokers, we have drumline ferrules, which are only to be used in drum lines and along with 3 wraps of the wire rope. And then we have the lower cost machine ferrules. The screwy choker ferrules are made in our 40SS material, so you get all those advantages. You also get the advantage of having the screwy part inside that helps to hold on to the wire rope after you swage it. Wedge ferrules can be used with either the wedges, which are separate, which is a good application for if you don't have a shop available right there. The other thing you can use wedge ferrules with is socket fast, a resin. So you can actually broom out your wire rope in a wedge ferrule and pour in the resin, and you get a very good joint at that point. And then obviously you have the zinc ferrule, which is specifically designed for zinc. We have multiple ranges of hardware. So this is mostly choker hooks. We've supplied choker hooks for years and years to the forestry applications. So we still have those. They're available. We also have what we call a roll-off hook, and we supply thimbles in many different sizes. These are industrial strength thimbles that can be tested up to 2 times the working load with no deformation. When you have a swage fitting, you need a swager or a swage press in order to get that on the wire rope. So we offer 4 models. We have a Mark 87, it's our smallest one at 200 tons. We have a Mark 100 at 350 tons, a Mark 150, which are our most popular at 500 tons. And then we have the big boy, our Mark 250, which will give you 1,200 tons of force at the dies. Our swagers have switch power units, so there's no mechanical stops anymore. That's all done by limit switch. Our Mark 150 has the integrated auto lubrication feature, so you don't have to worry about that. And so they're very good industry standard swagers. Along with that, you have the dies. So depending on the size of swager, you have different sizes of dies. We make them for most every size of wire rope that you can imagine. And we will also entertain special dies to your request. We like to say that a proper swage is one that has the proper wire rope size, the proper fitting, the proper die that's been gauged, and then the swage procedures are followed. So we have the swage gauges in order to make sure that your dies are properly sized. And those are available in any of our distributors. Also, we have our resin is a socket fast resin. So this is a 2-part epoxy. Both pieces are liquid, and you mix them together, and it's used anywhere that you can use zinc or socket fat or resin. It's usually it's 100% efficient, and it's got a very short cure time. So all this stuff is available at one of our master distributors. If you can see, as you can see in the map there, these organizations are ready to fulfill any orders or questions that you may have. And at that, I think that's all I've got right now.
Okay, Dan. We did have a question come in through the Q&A. We have somebody was asking if we allow our ESCO created dies to be used on non-ESCO swagers.
I think the answer to that is yes, if they're properly designed, right? It's difficult because we don't have the we don't have any control of how it's used. So if the other swager can completely close the dies like they're supposed to be closed, it should not be an issue.
All right, I got another question coming in now. We've got, are our spelter sockets designed to break higher than the wire rope they are sized for?
The answer to that is yes. Spelter sockets are designed to where the wire rope will break first. That is true.
So to add on to that too, ESCO does do a lot of its own internal testing and certification on an annual or multi-annual basis for each of these fittings and parts. So in a lot of cases, we do know, based on our own testing requirements and setups, what our efficiencies are for these. We do encourage anyone that purchases these parts and uses them with any other specifications or setups that they would do their own destructive testing to verify what their efficiency numbers are. But we are willing to share what our testing has shown as far as certification and efficiency of the fittings. All right, another question for you here from Matthew Marks is, do your sockets have the rings on the inside of the bowl? And if yes, do we recommend putting putty over those rings before pouring any resin?
The answer to that is yes, they do have rings. That goes back to way back when they used to require rings for zinc. And yes, we do recommend that you fill in those rings before using the resin.
All right, here we go. Another question coming in on, are other resin types allowable to be used with our spelter sockets?
The answer to that is yes, you can use other types of resin. We just recommend, you do some testing to make sure that you still get the same efficiency that you're expecting.
All right, and then a follow-up question to our spelter socket breaking strengths relative to the ropes. Someone is asking if the breaking strength is greater than a 35 by 7 wire rope, or are we only rating that relative to the standard 6 by 25 or 6 by 37?
So on the spelter sockets, we rate that actually on strand. So there's a little bit different rating there. For the size that you need, we have a spelter socket that will work. So if you can imagine strands that have a much higher breaking strength, and all of our spelter sockets are designed to handle that load.
And then a follow-up question to the socket rings. Someone's asking why our sockets would have rings if we need to fill them in.
I wish I knew that. That's a historical question. The way I understand it is that the old zinc applications they wanted the rings in there so that the slug didn't slide out, and with having the rings in there, it prevented the slug from sliding out of the socket. Anymore we have a different feature on our sockets that'll keep the slug in, so the rings are really not needed anymore.
All right, and another question here is, how large of a D socket do we stock and where are they made?
So our Big D sockets are made at our foundry in Port Hope, Canada. It's in Ontario. We have anywhere from a handful to one or two, depending on the size, in stock there in Port Hope.
And the size range on those go from a 2-inch rope size all the way up to a 4-inch rope size as far as what's available.
All right. Thank you all for your time. Any other questions?
No, I think we've exhausted the questions. So thank you, Dan, and thank you, Michael. And thank you to the attendees for great questions.